Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is Presley, and in this video today, I want to give you my full review for Pandorum. Now, this is a dystopian futuristic sci-fi movie that released back in 2009, and the only reason I really wanted to watch this in the first place was because I really dug the poster. There's something oddly entrancing and interesting about this look. It feels creepy, very veiny and gross, and I just kind of wanted to check it out. I had heard nothing about it previously, never seen any reviews about it, never hear anybody talking about it, so I really kind of thought, and I still kept my expectations very neutral, but I did think it was going to kind of be bad because I just never hear any buzz around this movie, and I am very happy to say that I was pleasantly surprised at the quality. I dug this movie. Now, my girlfriend loved it even more than I did. She gave it a 5 stars out of 5, and I'm going to tell you my rating, obviously, towards the end of this review. It's not a 5 out of 5, but it was a damn good movie, and honestly, way better than I expected. So let's get into the things that I really like about it. One, it kind of feels a little bit derivative of Alien, and that's not a bad thing because I do love Alien. Because the reason I say it's not a bad thing is that it doesn't copy Alien directly. It just kind of has a lot of the same vibes and some similar elements to Alien, which I personally dig. And then I also like that it very much does its own thing later on into the film and doesn't just copy Alien, because then I would not like that movie and I would give it a much lower score than I did. But the fact that it felt familiar but did its own thing really led it to a good score for me. Now, Pandorum follows this flight crew who is sent to a distant planet to basically terraform and get information, dig, things like that, to see if they can survive on this planet because Earth is dying, things like that. It's a pretty standard story. I feel like we've seen some movies like this before. Dying planet, being sent off into a new world. They're the only people left because Earth is completely gone, things like that. We've seen this before. We've seen this trope in many other films, but I think it's done pretty well here, and there is a specific twist at the very, very end, which I will not spoil here. It's already a little bit of a spoiler, the fact that I'm telling you there's a twist, but I really dug the twist. I dug the creative direction that they went at the end of this film. I think it was super cool. It definitely subverted my expectations, and I thought it wrapped up the story beautifully. Our main characters here are this general on the ship and then another guy who's part of like the intelligence crew or something like that. And what they're trying to do is basically figure out what happened, why they've suddenly woken up from their hypersleep and things like that. And there's a lot of weird things going on this ship called the Pandorum. I just thought it was super fun. Now, I will say, we are going to be talking about the monster designs a little bit, and there are monsters in this film, so it is kind of a little bit of a spoiler, but I have to talk about it because that's one of my points of criticism, is that I didn't think the monster designs were too cool or too inspiring or too interesting. I thought they looked a little bit bland and a little bit generic, a little bit vanilla, as one might say. So that was one of the reasons that I didn't give this film a super high score. I think if we had more interesting, creepy villains, maybe a little bit darker, didn't come out as much, I'd like it a little bit more. But towards the end of the film, we start seeing the monsters a bunch. They're gaining a lot of screen time. And I typically like when horror movies and thriller movies, suspenseful movies, kind of show the villains less. I like that. I think it makes for more intrigue, and it allows them to be scarier when they are on screen. So that is one little criticism I had. But it's basically the journey about this one intelligence agent on the ship who's trying to find his way to the reactor to start up the ship because he thinks they've crash landed or they're somewhere in the middle of space. And we follow him and the hijinks that come along with that, and this little group of ragtag members that he finds along the way. Overall, a lot of it feels very similar and very familiar, I should say, not similar. But I think it's done in a fun and interesting way. I really dig the contrast of this movie. This is one of those late 2000s films that has like a darkness filter put on it, so it's super contrasty, super dark and shadowy, and honestly I think it works really well for the mood of this film. It feels grimy, it feels very claustrophobic at times, and overall I just dug that. Now, there are a lot of twists and turns throughout here, specifically with one of these main characters, the general, and then somebody else that he's dealing with. I'm not going to spoil exactly who that is, but there was a nice little twist, little plot twist with that I thought was fun. These characters feel like they are real. They don't feel super authentic, but they do not feel like cardboard cutouts, and I like that because I can't stand when sci-fi movies have super bland cardboard cutout characters that you really couldn't give a damn about. This one, you actually feel for them a little bit, and I love where they go towards the end. Now, with the aesthetics out of the way, the characters out of the way, the main story out of the way without giving too much of it to you, the last thing I want to talk about, and this is a point of criticism before I give you my rating, is going to be the audio mixing. Now, I know that sometimes the audio mixing can be a point of contention for people, and it definitely was for me on this film. People don't typically like the audio mixing on Tenet, and I get that. But this movie specifically had very poor mixing. It felt like the characters were whispering the whole time, even though we can very clearly tell that they were talking at full volume. And their audio is just so low, followed by some insanely loud action. And we're in this claustrophobic, tight, dark spaceship, but the action is so loud. It's almost ear-piercingly loud. There's a lot of whooshes. There's a lot of like monsters screaming. So I had to constantly be changing the volume up and down throughout this film. It was getting a little bit frustrating. And maybe that is just Amazon Prime's horrible compression. I'm not entirely sure, because it has happened on some other movies, though not to this degree. So I will say Pandorum definitely didn't have the best audio. With all this being said, I really did enjoy Pandorum. I had a great time with it, and like I said earlier, my girlfriend adored the film. I love the aesthetic of this. I love that it feels kind of like Alien, but it's doing its own thing. And it was a very fun movie. It didn't feel like it dragged at all, and I was glued to the screen the whole time. Overall, not going to give it a super high score, but I will give it a 3.5 stars out of 5, because there were a lot of great things about it without there being too much downside. And overall, it's just a fun time. If you like Alien, or if you like dystopian sci-fi movies, if you like movies that are all set in one location, specifically on the spaceship, you're going to love this film, I think. So definitely check it out if you haven't already. And if you have seen it, what would you rate it? Again, I gave it a 3.5 stars out of 5. I really dug it, and my girlfriend gave it a 5. With that being said, thank you so very much for watching this review. Please make sure to like, comment, and hit that subscribe button, and I will see you all later.